Hello and welcome to another episode of Rebel Rogue, where today I'm going to be showing you how to do a colour scheme using colour theory, or more precisely, how to choose your colour scheme. Rebel Rogue. To some of you, colour theory might be a completely alien thing. But it's quite simple. I haven't really got much of a degree in art, but I understand colour theory enough to tell you a bit about it. I've seen quite a few YouTube videos going over colour theory, how to use it in miniatures, how to pick colour schemes, so I thought I'd just bundle it into this video. And just trying to give you some advice. This will be the first episode in a series of probably 3 videos going over picking colour schemes. This is on using colour theory. The next will be on using inspiration that you find around you, such as nature and graffiti and that sort of thing. And the third will be putting these things into practice. So I would recommend, if you're going to do a bit of colour theory, you want to get yourself a colour wheel. This is a really nice one because it's got colour relationships on it. You don't have to get one exactly like this, but if you're interested, this is from the Colour Wheel Company, copyright 2010. Don't actually know when I got it, probably 2015. So it's the Colour Wheel Company, Philomath, Oregon. Details are there if you want them, but it's quite simply a colour wheel. The first side of this particular colour wheel shows you what you do if you add red to red, add red to red-orange, add red to orange, etc, with blue, white and black. So you've got the 3 primary colours, white and black. It also has a very useful grayscale table and a few details on things like secondary colours, tertiary colours, warm, cold colour, and then colour relationships. I'm mainly going to be going through maybe warm and cold colours. I'm probably going to touch on general colour such as hue, value and intensity or saturation. I'll probably put maybe a little bit in there, but I'm mainly going to be focusing on relationships between colours. The first thing you do want to think about when you're creating a colour scheme is, what do I want the main colour to be? And by main colour I don't mean black or white. I mean other more colourful colours that aren't on the grayscale. For example, with this Eldar Farseer I'm trying to paint, I have gone with a sort of blue-grey colour. It's a sort of blue-white colour for the helmet and stuff. And technically it's going to be a black cloak, but my main colour on this is the turquoise, which works well with the bluey grey, light blue grey colour, because it's a similar colour. And I'm going to go through that now. Depending on what colour you pick as your main colour, that can influence quite a few of your different choices. Another good example is this orc. I've got my main colour as sort of the green skin or the turquoise armour. Both of them work together because of colour theory. Now, let's take the example of the orc. If we were to say that the main colour was the blue-green, we've got the pure colour here, and that is blue-green. This diagram tells us that the complement of that is red-orange, and complementary is colours that are opposite each other on the colour wheel. For example, blue and orange, or green and red. You can do quite a bit to this though. But for this particular orc model, I went for what's called analogous, or analog relationship, which is where they are next to each other on the colour wheel. If you were going to do an analog relationship, as said in this little paragraph here, it would recommend using only 5 colours. So I might use yellow, green, green, blue, and blue, violet as my transition or colours on my model. I might use them if I was going for analogous. If I was going for monochromatic, monochrome, just one colour, I'd use the blue-green, I'd use the tint, tone and shade. The tone, let's find out what's tone. Tone is the colour plus grey, tint is the colour plus white, and shade is the colour plus black. So I might use them, and I might use the pure colour if I were going for monochromatic. But with this one, it's more sort of analogous, because I've got the blue, but it also brings in a split complement, which is a split complementary scheme, is where you have your pure colour, and you have your complement, which is here, your complementary colour, and you take the two colours next to it. So those three. The copper is technically metallic orange, so it works well with the split complement of the blue-green. I've also got the analogue of the green of the skin. And of course brown is sort of orange, but it's also maybe red-orange, but it's also technically neutral. I am quite aware that I probably should have explained a few things first, and I'm going to explain those things now. The things I should have explained before I went into this orc and explaining the colour scheme of it is basic colour theory. Your pure colour, in this case blue-green, but I'm going to change it to a colour you might not like. A colour we all know, whether we love it or not is purely up to you, and I'm going to take that as red. Sorry about the weird cut here, it's because my phone went a bit crackers with its storage, and it's had to delete some videos and all stuff I've already transitioned and all that. Right, so we have our pure colour, and if I get a pointy stick, pure colour, red. The colour that is opposite to it on the colour wheel is known as its complement, and they are in unison called complementary colours. For red, this is green. The colours next to the complement of red, or in this case green, are known as a split complement. In this case, it's yellow-green and blue-green. So for red, we might say, right, we're going to paint this model with a main of red, but we're going to bring in the split complementary colours of red, blue-green and yellow-green. Blue-green is, in case you're wondering, sort of turquoise and teal. So I might, for example, go with Mephiston red, and I might go with a sort of yellow-green, such as Goblin green. That's the one I can think of off the top of my head. And I might go with a turquoise there. Below is turquoise, and I would have a split complementary scheme. Alternatively, I could paint main model red, and for example, like you see in Blood Angels, paint the main armour red and put the complementary colour of green. Blood Angels, in case you haven't noticed on their models, they have green lenses, and I'm going to come on to this in a little bit. The colours next to red on the colour wheel are the analogues, and you might go with an analogous colour scheme where you'd use the analogues of red, violet and red, orange along with red, but you can use roughly 5 colours. It usually works. So you could have violet, or sort of royal purple, red, red, orange and orange. You could use them all on the same model, but an important one is to vary the amount that you have. The next important relationship in red is what's known as a triad. This is where you take 3 colours that are equally spaced on the colour wheel. In the case of red, it's really simple because they are the 3 primary colours, red, blue and yellow. They are a triadic scheme. Another more complicated one is known as a tetrad, which is where you take 4 colours that are, I believe it's equally spaced. They are 2 sets of complements. For example, I'm going to have to realign my colour wheel here. So you have red as this tetrad here. We then follow this tetrad diagram here to green. We also have violet and yellow. But we could have any set of complements. So they are the main relationships we need to know. So how can we use these? Firstly, as I was explaining before about the Blood Angels, they have green in their lenses. Often when you use a complement, it might look to clash. Analogues usually work nicely because they're close to each other. For example, well, because they're next to each other on the colour wheel. For example, in this Gravis Captain, I've got the red cloak, but I've also got the violet and the sort of purple on the armour. And if you use only a 3-tone colour wheel, then they are analogues. But of course, violet is the analogue to red violet, which is the analogue to red, which means you can still sort of use it. You can sort of get away with it. Blue is because I've got this blue here. It works because it's an analogue of violet, sort of, if you get rid of the tertiary colour. And purple generally contains a lot of blue because it's a mix between blue and red. And it also works with the red because it's a triad. So that's how we might use it. But you see, they don't clash and they don't overpower each other. That's what I'm trying to get across. Analogues don't usually clash until you end up going with violet and orange, which is just a bit clashy. But when you've got complements, they do tend to clash if you give very highly saturated, which means lots of the colour, for example, the green on this orc skin. And if I were to put that on the same model as the red here, it might clash. How can we reduce that then? We reduce that by reducing the saturation, which is the sort of the value, let's find out what actually is it? The purity of a colour. There we are. So if we reduce the purity of a colour by adding white, grey or black, now if we change the value of it, it often desaturates it. Hue by intensity. Basically, if you desaturate a colour such as green, usually by mixing grey or white or black, yes, that is also changing the value of it. But if you reduce the intensity of it, it will often work then with its complement if you boost the intensity of this. You have one more intense than the other and it will work. Another way you can solve it is by reducing the surface area that this certain colour covers. For example, you could just use green, such as on this model. I've just used green in the eye lenses. This just reduces it and stops it clashing as much. Same with the Blood Angels, they use green in the lenses but not on the rest of the armour. The third, often more complicated way of reducing clashing between colours is to make one of those colours metallic. For example, if we were to take violet, or purple, let's call it, purple, violet, you know, the equal mix of blue and red, its complement is yellow. That clashes. Even if you desaturate the yellow, it will still clash, because yellow is very bright. It's generally a very bright colour because it's a warm colour, and the purple is a colder colour, and thus it tends to clash. Whereas if you make the yellow metallic and bring in a gold, it blends together more nicely because it's complement, but it's also reduced the saturation and intensity by making it metallic. Something about it changes the way it reacts to the purple. It doesn't look quite as yellow. Something in the way metallics are mixed makes it less intense, and thus it tends to work. Example, this captain with the purple and the gold. Generally, I will remind you though that gold usually works with most other colours. The same with most metallics, except perhaps copper. Looking at more the copper, bronze and brass sort of colours might not work quite as well. But usually gold and silver you can get away with any other colours. And thus they are nice to use as a metallic. Another important part of choosing your colour scheme using colour theory is to think about, do you want your overall model to be warm or do you want it to be cold? And also, where on the grayscale, as it were, do you want your model to fall? Do you want it to be more black or do you want it to be more white? Do you want it to be lighter or darker? The warm colours, in case you're not aware, are anything from yellow to red, I believe it is. Pretty sure it is. Yep, sort of red, violet to yellow, covers half the colour wheel. You've then got your cool colours, which are green to violet. And they tend to work with each other because they're often colours of water, the colours of winter with the cold colours, whereas the warm colours are more the colours of fire. And even royalty, really, with the red violet. And thus you can convey different meanings through your model. I know most people probably don't want to do this, but for the people who do, it's important to know. When choosing a colour scheme, it may be better, I'm just saying may here, be better to stick to, say, just cold colours or just warm colours. But you could very easily decide to bring in, if we turn the page again, if we decide to bring in a complement, which is, for example, if we were to take red, it's a warm colour, but we take its complement, when I do that, its complement is green, which is a cool colour. So you can bring in small amounts of the other colour warmth, as it were. You can also, when you're thinking about the mood or how light or dark you want your model to be, think about, do you want to use, if you say using a blue here, for example, do you want to use the tint, which is to add white and make it quite light, or do you want to use a tone, which would be adding grey, it would desaturate it, and that is important when reducing saturation, or do you want to use the shade? Do you want it to be darker or lighter? That's quite simple. But you could then, for example, again with my farseer, we bring in the black. The black is a dark colour. It has a nice contrast to the light colour on the light colours of the turquoise and the white. And that is a thing you will keep on hearing people talking about, is contrast, contrast, contrast. That doesn't just mean the difference between light and dark of a certain colour. That is more a painting technique. But no, you could also have the contrast between two different colours. For example, green and red, as well as being complementary, I believe they're also contrasting colours. I think that's another name for them. They contrast each other, and thus by reducing that you can play around with it and make it work. But the contrast between light and dark on the model as a whole means that when playing with dark and light colours, you can bring in a darker colour just to boost the contrast and just change the tone a bit. I will pull you back to my Gravis Captain. I've gone with quite dark armour. It's quite dark, it's dingy, as it were. It's more dark colours and also quite cold. But then if you bring in the red is both quite light and also, when in places it's dark due to contrasting itself, but it's also a warm colour. So you get this contrast between warm and cold rather, and you also get the contrast between light and dark. Right, sorry if this is a bit weird. I've just spent about 2 minutes or something thinking about what I've just waffled on about. So before the outro bit, I'm going to do a quick summary of what it is you need to take from this video. Firstly, you can use the colour wheel to pick your colour schemes. Start by taking a pure colour, such as red. Then you could think about using your analogous colours or analogous, however you say it, of red, violet, red, orange, orange and violet. I'd say maybe maximum pick 5. Or you could use your complementary or split complementary colours. If using a complementary, I would recommend desaturating it, or in the case of, say, violet and yellow, turning yellow into gold and then using them. Or maybe even having metallic green. It might probably look a bit dodgy. Maybe desaturate it or change the amount of area it covers. For example, just having little eye lenses, little details like that. Alternatively, you could pick a triadic, which would be red, blue and yellow, in this case of red, and they're equally spaced on the colour wheel. You could think about doing monochromatic, where you just use red, You could use tetrads, which is 2 sets of complements. I could use red and green, violet and yellow, and that's probably most of what you need to know and take from this video. I'd like to just quickly mention metallics. Silver works with anything. Copper, bronze and brass usually work with anything that works with orange. Gold usually works with most things. I'd like to also mention monochromes. Black works with anything, white works with anything. But when placing colours next to black, they will always look brighter. If you place them next to white, they will always look darker. You can use warm colours and cold colours to pick your colour scheme. You could just use warm, you could just use cold or cool. And that probably sums it up, apart from light and dark. You can use light colours and dark colours. So you could use dark reds, dark purples, dark blues, and then maybe put in a bright white to contrast with that. I would probably recommend only putting one thing that breaks it, maybe 2 at most, but then again think about surface area. It's likely to dominate the view if you have a large area painted in it, but just small details like skulls you can get away with. Anyway, I'll let me from about 3 minutes ago finish off waffling, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Goodbye. So, I know I've waffled, I know I've gone crazy, and I know it's mainly been going about colour wheel and colour theory, but I hope you have found something of value in this video. Please subscribe if you don't want to miss the video where I put these into practice and actually do something useful with them. Also, don't forget to check out any of the other stuff. I've got links in the description to my Instagram page and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss the next video, which may make more sense to you. I don't know. It probably will make more sense. I feel like I've waffled. I'm sure you feel like it too. If you've got to the end, thank you. Do me another favour by hitting that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. If you've really loved this video, go give it a like, and now go and watch these 2 videos, which you may find some value in. If you haven't already seen them, if you've already seen them, then thank you for watching them. Go share them with your friends, share this video with your friends, and most importantly, I'll see you for the next video. Thank you for watching.